Welcome back into A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. You search Locked On Sports Atlanta. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. I'm at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. And don't forget to check out all the shows we have here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, including Locked On Falcons, Locked On Hawks, our Braves postcast with Grant McCauley, Hitting Hard with John Chuckery, and ATL Day Ones with Jarvis Davis and Denitra Batiste. My next guest really probably doesn't need any introduction because if you're an Atlanta sports fan, you certainly know his website, Sports Talk ATL, and you know him on Twitter because, well, he's a very highly known commodity after Deshaun Watson was rumored to be coming to Atlanta. He is Jake Gordon. You can find him on Twitter at CantGuard. Jake, he is here on A to Z. Jake, Chief Operating Officer of Sports Talk Atlanta. Great to have you here, brother. Great to finally do some face-to-face stuff.
Yeah, I know. We've done the spaces and stuff before like that. I think this is the first time we've ever actually sat down and done a show, though, so this should be fun.
All right. Before we get to all the side stuff, let's start with the sports in Atlanta, particularly the Atlanta Braves, who have reached a level of frustration for most fans that we didn't expect to be at. I think you're past the point of World Series hangover. I think you're at a point where you might not be as a good a team that you thought you were. The problem is that the names on the back of the jersey should be a lot better than what they're playing. And I have set June 15th as the date on the wall. After they get through this Rockies, the A's, the Pirates, and the Nationals, if they can't be above 500 by then is when I'm officially pushing the panic button. Are you there yet?
No, I definitely agree with you, though, because, it's getting to that time where, they made a huge run. They weren't over 500 till August last year. I get all that stuff, but the Mets are a lot better this year. And you do have the extra playoff spot. So I'm not as worried about making the playoffs. But if you talk about competing for the division, it's got to be sooner rather than later. And I understand it's June. But this is just like we saw last year. I've been on the record saying this multiple times. This team it just seems like they can't play a complete game of baseball. Somebody just doesn't show up to the park that night. It's either the defense, the starter, the offense won't get any action, or the bullpen will fall apart. It's just they can't get a complete game. Last night looked pretty good, the 6-0 win, but it was against Arizona, and they lost two pretty easy games there. And that's just disappointing. Those are the games you got to win. And it's just like last year, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. It's just frustrating to watch, really.
Yeah, and look, I say they're not playing a brand of baseball that I like. Like the games that they're losing, it's okay if you lose a game every now and then where it's 3-2 and your bats just don't wake up. It's okay every now and then if you blow a game, because your bullpen, your closer blows a save. Like that happens to every team in baseball. But for 9 innings, they just don't look like a very fundamentally sound baseball team at times, and that to me is frustrating.
Yeah, it's the little things too. It's errors. Just not hitting with runners in scoring position. That's really the most frustrating part is they are a good team. They have good players. They're just not playing like it right now. It's just like it was last year. It's just really, at the end of the day, it's just terrible to watch. I hate watching
it. I'm certainly not staying up late when they're on the West Coast to watch it. That's for sure. One final question here on the Braves. And I wonder, Alex Anthopoulos has had a reputation forever as being an uber aggressive GM. Now, all that was before he had won a title. Do you think he changes course here and says, well, I'm going to sit back and just let this run out where we are? Or do you feel like there is at some point in time a shakeup that could come if they're not over 500 by the time we get to that June 15th sort of line of demarcation that you and I have set?
Yeah, no, I definitely think that it's possible that Alex Anthopoulos could just make a move. There's plenty of guys that are going to be available. And if he feels like they need an outfielder, I think he will go get one. It's really all going to depend just because they don't have the assets that they had a couple months ago before they acquired Matt Olson. And even before then, it wasn't great. But they still got a couple guys that they can throw out there. And you look at somebody like Andrew Benintendi from Kansas City, who's absolutely crushing it this year. Brian Reynolds is actually having a down year, but you may be able to get somebody like him on a discount. And then, of course, Anthopoulos, nobody saw Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, all those guys. But I don't think that's really going to happen this year. I don't think you're not going to get that stroke of luck again this year. You're not going to pick up the NLCS MVP and the World Series MVP for pennies at the deadline. You're might have to do something a little bigger.
Yeah, I think at this point, other GMs are very weary when the phone rings and it says 404 or 678 or whatever it is, the number is from the Atlanta offices. Send that to voicemail. We'll call him back because I'm not going to be the dummy who gets fleeced at the deadline like it happened last time around. All right, let's switch gears here. Atlanta Falcons. And for the record, it was great doing this Spaces thing on Twitter with you guys right before the draft leading up to it. I think there were some really great conversations with fans and viewers. I don't do enough of those Spaces things on Twitter, but they're a lot of fun. When somebody else does them, I love to jump in and sort of just, do what I always did on radio for years, just stir the pot and get the hell out of Dodge. But nonetheless, we have a Falcons team right now that has drafted a pass catcher 2 years in a row inside the top 10, which is still head-scratching and perplexing to me. That said, what I am focused on right now is sort of how the rest of this thing plays out. Desmond Ridder, for my money, has to get looked at this year. I don't care when it is. I don't care for how long it is. I do care for how long it is. It's got to be a good enough sample set to understand. But, he's got to get looked at some point. And look, Marcus Mariota has said that he thinks he's going to be the starter week 1. So is that a realistic possibility in your mind? Or is Mariota just sort of deflecting some attention here?
I think that's just Mariota being a nice guy. He's a pretty nice guy, I think, as we've seen. And it's not that I don't think Desmond Ridder is good. It's just that I'm not a big fan of rookie quarterbacks starting week 1. And I don't think Arthur Smith would be either. Unless he just absolutely blows it out of the water, which, hey, he might. But I don't really see that being happening right now. He's going to have a big transition, which pretty much any quarterback going to the league does. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was threw the most interceptions in the league last year. It's not easy. And I think a good mark for him would be that Panthers game after the first 7 or 8 games, which is a brutal stretch. If you look at a team that's 1-7 and you're talking about being in Stroud, Young, Levis, those guys' territory, you got to see what you got in this kid to see if you need to take a quarterback next year.
Now, I mean this in all sincerity. Like you haven't listened to A to Z, because that's the exact game that I picked for him to start was the Week 8 game against Carolina. And I've said it repeatedly. The reason I believe that, 1, they're not a good defense. 2, you're home. 3, you're going to see that same team 10 days later, and you'll get a real sense of what he's learned from, the first time he sees him to the second time he sees him in a short amount of time. And I think that's a great barometer test to figure out what it is. Plus, he will have, a what do you call it? A break after that to have a mini bye week after the Thursday night game. So, I mean, I think to me, that's the most opportune time to put him in there, because you can't wait till the bye week till after week 14. It's just too late. And I don't know if you're going to get anything out of the whole thing. I look for Ridder when it comes to like OTAs coming up. How quickly are they going to give him reps with the ones? Because I think it's very telling. If they're willing to give him more, even if they don't plan on starting him, that at least tells me the kid understands what he's doing. He understands how to read a defense. He understands all the basics, right? Remember, and I said this yesterday on the show, he didn't see Alabama defense. He didn't see a, Penn State defense. Hell, he didn't even see an Oregon State defense. Like, the best defense he saw was Tulane, for crying out loud. So, like, he played Navy. Like, let's get real here for a minute here and understand that there's a whole different level of athlete and athleticism that he's looking at for the first time that he's never seen in his collegiate career.
One of the games I do have to give him credit for, and I only really remember this one because I bet the house on Cincinnati. He did go into South Bend, and I mean, he didn't look. That's my thing with Ridder. What I've always said that I liked about him, he never looks scared. He doesn't look intimidated in big moments. He doesn't look like he's ever outmatched. Even against Alabama in the playoff, even in Notre Dame in South Bend, he seemed pretty collected. He may not have had the best stats, but if he passed the eye test in that aspect, and I think that's something that'll serve him well. But as far as the speed of the game, that's definitely going to be something that's way different. Even in the NFL, it's so different from Alabama, so different from Notre Dame. It's definitely a big adjustment, though. You're right there.
What is your expectation level? Obviously, it's low for the Falcons, but what would you consider a successful season for this team?
The honest answer, I would think it would be really successful if they had the first pick. But I would say you field a top 20 defense, and you don't have one of those stretches like you had last year when it was Dallas, New England, and somebody else back to back where you got outscored 70-something to nothing. Just don't get completely killed, I guess. I think
that's fair. I think they're going to be competitive. I think this. What I always say is, how you win never matters. How you lose always matters, right? Like, this if you've ever gambled. You don't care. You don't remember the big wins. You always remember the bad beats, right? They stick with you forever because losses suck. And so I'm okay if I'm watching a team, and I use this example. They head into the fourth quarter trailing 27-24, and they're in the game, and 2 mistake bonehead plays end up making it a, 38-24 final. Now, it looks like a blowout on paper, But if you watch the game, you know that they were in it for 3 quarters and 3+ quarters. And that tells me you get 1 or 2 other players next year when you have 90 million in cap space, and you can actually make a difference and start winning those games as opposed to losing them. I just need them to be competitive. It's like I think you coined it perfectly. You can't get outscored in a stretch 70-3. Like, that's just inexcusable at this point in time.
Yeah, and another thing too is, like, if the rookies from this previous class look good, if we get some, you see Richie Grant out there making some plays, that's the thing, is you really just want to see that development of the young players. You want to see the young players play well, because they're going to have a lot of cap space going into not this season, but the season after that. And that's a lot you can spend on offensive and defensive lines, and you can actually probably, if you spend it right, fix your O-line and fix your pass rush, something they haven't been able to do in years. I mean, we founded the site in 2015, and I don't think we've ever really been able to talk about the Falcons being able to spend a lot of money like that. So it'll be interesting to see who takes those steps.
Well, that's what happens when you have Falcons for life, I suppose, right? I mean, that's, when you crown those people Falcons for life, you don't have a lot of money to spend because you're paying somebody for life. Nonetheless, I digress. Let's talk about one player here in particular, and that's Kyle Pitts, as he heads into year 2. Now, no one is sitting here trying to justify the touchdowns, right? Like, you just can't have it. It's unacceptable, right? He's a 6'8" guy, and should be the easiest damn target on the field to find in the red zone. So we know that the 1 touchdown thing has to change. No one's going to try to justify it. That said, the one number I'm going to look at for Kyle Pitts this year more than anything is his targets, because you can't sell me on the concept that you drafted him 4th overall as a ancillary secondary target. And you certainly can't sell me on that concept after you drafted him and then you drafted another pass catcher in the 1st round the following year when you had plenty of other needs. You can't sell me on the idea that overfeeding those 2 guys the ball is the wrong answer. So I'm looking at targets for Kyle Pitts, because all I really care about, if Marcus Mariota can't hit the broadside of a barn, I don't give a rip. If he hits the guy in the 3rd row, but it was intended to go to Kyle Pitts, I'm okay with it. So I am looking at targets. If he has anything less than 120 targets this year, I'm not giving Arthur Smith a pass. Not going to, because it's his job to scheme that dude open and scheme the ball his way no matter what. And the same thing goes for Drake London. If he doesn't see 70, 80 targets this year, shame on you, Arthur Smith. Now, I don't believe he'll do it, but I'm just saying that's the one thing offensively I'm not going to allow slide.
Yeah, and another thing I've said about this Falcons regime is everybody either loves them or they hate them. And my thing has always been, I just want you to have a plan that I can see. Like, I want something that I can see. If you want to go get all 6'5" or taller receivers, which they've done, and play jump ball all game, that's great. I just want to see a plan. I want to see some direction. And I feel like that's something they kind of lost at the end of the Dan Quinn era, when it just became, oh my God, can we please not lose in the most embarrassing way possible? Like, I just want to see a foundation a foundation for what you want to do. And you know what? If that doesn't work, I can live with that. But I don't want to be lied to, and I want to see a vision.
Oh, you don't want to be lied to? You mean we're not in a rebuild? Like that lie?
I guess they have to say that. I think they can fine you if you say something if you don't say that one.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we didn't really have any deep conversations about Deshaun Watson. You mean that lie? Yeah, that one too. So anyway, nonetheless, while I brought him up, it was great to watch you go that whole Twitter exchange from the sidelines with Deshaun Watson. I don't need to know your sources. I don't care. I don't care where you got the information from. But it must have been fun having people hang on your Twitter account all day long for like 4 or 5 days straight. Either that or it was really super annoying. Which one was it?
It was a little bit of both. It was kind of one of those things to where I was like, okay, I know I'm doing this, and I know it's kind of going to be a big deal. I didn't really ever think it was going to be that big of a deal. But really, at the end of the day, I know if it was going to happen. It just, $230 million guaranteed to a guy with 23 civil suits pending against him. I think a lot of people would reverse course on that. And I mean, all this stuff's come out that pretty much said that everything that I said was right, except Cleveland just came in at the last minute. My only mistake was high stepping too early, which I mean,
no, listen, those moments don't come along. Just do it. Like, if you're going down, you go down big swing, right? You don't go down on a check swing for the damn fences, fall down and make a complete ass out of yourself. That's the way you do
exactly it. I was like, I'm going to get destroyed even if I'm wrong. So if I'm going to be wrong, I might as well be wrong and be super arrogant about it. But
no,
it rubs some people the wrong way. Some people, and I've moved on from it too. I mean, I'm just
and again, I think we DM back and forth. I'm like, man, don't sweat these people. Like you knew this was the result if you were wrong. The "I told you so" crowd was going to come out of nowhere and just then eat you for breakfast. But it was fun to watch, man. I think you did a great job. I think you took it all in stride. You never got too personal with it. The fact that you actually deactivated your account for a short time was pretty funny. I was like, oh, he actually did it. I was like, oh my God, really? I was like, I wonder when the burner account's coming out and everything else. So you held to your word. You had no reason not to get back on Twitter. You did what you were supposed to do. Like it was.
Yeah,
I thought it
I
was
texted a close friend of mine who's very like in the public eye, and he has to deal with a lot of that stuff. And he was like, no, you gotta. He's like, first of all, everybody is like want you to come back and say like, you know,
Yes.
he's like, you got to just take it like a champ, and like if you can laugh about it a little bit, people, which I know, and obviously he's like, if you laugh about it a little bit, people forget. I mean,
and it's forgotten about by this time. It's all over with. No one cares.
The new Avengers movie came out or whatever, and people have short attention spans. gave them like 2 weeks, and they got over it.
Well, follow him on Twitter at Can't Guard Jake. Make sure you guys check out Sports Talk ATL.com for the best Atlanta sports news. Jake, always great to talk to you, brother. Appreciate your time as always. Let's do this again real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark.
All right. Take a time out. Come back. Fashion news and fan news about the Atlanta Falcons. That's next right here on A to Z. Stay with us.